Hello and welcome to this video. My name's Beckham. Around October 2018, Photoshop launched its new version for the coming year called Photoshop 2019. There's a surprise. But I guess most Creative Cloud users would have discovered this update by now, and it does bring a few changes that we need to know about. What I thought I'd do here is just touch on those that I think are the highlights for us photographers. The first one I'd like to take a look at is the Edit Undo, which we find at the top left of the screen, but I think most Photoshop users pretty quickly find the shortcut for this. We need it, don't we? Control Z. Well, in the past, if we hit Control Z, it would always step back or remove the previous edit we did. But if we hit Control Z again, it would come forward. And that's not very helpful if you wanted to remove 3 or 4 steps. Well, that's been changed. Control Z now continues back, so I can remove my first edit, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Not forgetting, of course, if you did go too far and you want to go back again, Control, Shift and Z, and we can go back just as easy. This is a change that, while not vital I suppose, I've already found to be extremely useful, and I'm well into using it already. Another change that I think is going to be extremely useful we'll find in the Layers window, and particularly in the blend modes that we drop down from this area here. When we select a layer like this train over this old rusty metal, if we were previously to select any of the blend modes, we had to go down these one at a time and more or less commit them to see the effect, then go and select the next and so on. But what we can do now is just mouse over them. You can see as I mouse over, we see the effect as we go. Pretty quick and pretty easy. Now that's going to be quite a benefit. So we can go down, look at all our favorites, choose one and commit it. A great change. Another great change is the free transform. Now we'll find that by going to the Edit menu, Free Transform. Control T is the shortcut that I think most of us find pretty quick. In this situation here, if you look on the right hand side, I've got 2 images and I want to make the upper image an inset image. I want to make it smaller. Now we can apply the free transform with that Control T shortcut. Now in the past, before Photoshop 2019, if we wanted to reduce the size of this image, it would be very easy, if we were not paying attention, to mistakenly distort the image. And then we would probably hit the Escape key, then we'd hit the Control T key once again. What Photoshop has done is to reverse the operation of the free transform. It simply means that when we apply the free transform, if you look up to the top left of the screen, the little chain link lock, which we used to have to go up and touch or hold the Shift key to do the same, is now locked automatically. So as soon as we apply the free transform, I don't need to touch any keys. I can just resize this and I could get it into position where I wanted it pretty quickly and easily. Now, should we wish to distort an image, and sometimes I have a need to do this, particularly when I'm making a slideshow where I want to make a 3:2 image a little bit more compatible with a 16:9 aspect ratio slideshow, then with an image like this perhaps, I would go to the top of the screen, I would hold the Shift key, and I would drag down the toggle, and I can distort the image as much as I like. So what Photoshop has done has reversed how the tool works. Where we used to have to hit the Shift key to retain height and width, now we hit the Shift key to distort. A good change, I think. Photoshop 2019 has added a second improvement to the free transform tool. Here I've got different images but the same scenario. So I want to reduce the size of the image sitting on the top of my layered stack. I'm going to begin by hitting Control T to bring up the free transform tool. We know with the other changes that they've applied that we now don't have to hold any keys to resize this and keep it in register with height and width. I can get the image to the size that I want. In the past we would have to either hit the enter key now or go up to the center top of the screen and hit the tick. We don't have to do that anymore. We can just go to whatever we was about to do next, and if I click a tool elsewhere, it doesn't matter where, that transform is committed. That's a great improvement. Now let me just show you that once again. I'm going to hit Control T to bring up that bounding box. I'll make my image smaller. So not only can I just go over to the toolbox and select a tool, and we can move on from there and this will be committed. I could go over to any of the thumbnails and click those and the free transform tool would be applied, but I can just click into the screen anywhere and it'll do it for me. That's a great improvement. We also have a similar change to the crop tool that we've just seen with the free transform. Take this image as an example. I've decided I just want to tidy up the composition here with the crop tool. So I'm going to drag in the corner toggle and just get things a little bit closer to the rule of thirds there. And to commit this, all I need to do is click somewhere else or click another tool. Now in the past, if we often did this, we'd have a panel that come up on screen that says, do you really want to crop the image? That was a pain. This is a great improvement. We also have some changes to the text tool. I'm not sure they're entirely that relevant to photographers, but you're going to see something different when you first use the text tool from Photoshop 2019, so let's just take a quick look. Whenever I click to start typing, we're going to see something like that. Photoshop applies the last font we use, so we get an idea of how it's going to look before we even start to type. You can also see that the text is highlighted. I can hide that highlight but still keep the text highlighted if I wanted to apply something. For example, if I hit Control H, you can see the highlight has gone, but I can still type. A great improvement, I think. So once I have my text typed, I need to commit it. Usually we can go to the enter key or the tick on the top right or the middle top of the screen, but if I was going to a new tool, when I select the tool, that text is committed. But here's another small change. Not great, but I think worthwhile. If I suddenly decided that I want to change the name or I've got a spelling wrong, although I've got my Move tool selected, if I double click the text, I can select it and overtype it very, very quickly. Another change that may not seem significant, but it is to me, is the ability to lock our workspace. Now we have a number of different workspaces within Photoshop and we can set up our own, and that's what you're viewing here. But it's not impossible sometimes to inadvertently drag out layers from one panel to another, especially if you use a Wacom graphics tablet, because you don't need to physically click sometimes to do these things. Well, when that happens, if it's too bad a change, then I need to go back to the options at the top of the screen here and reset Barry's screen. That's not a problem, but now I can lock the panel. To do this, we need to go to the top left-ish of the screen. We need Window, Workspace, Lock Workspace. Now if I go up there and try to drag it out, or the history, nothing happens. A good improvement for me. Another improvement is with the home screen. If you're a user of the home screen, there's now a way to go back to it without having to close the image that you already had open in Photoshop. What we have is a home button in the shape of a tiny house tucked right up on the top left of our screen, but remember, we need to turn the home screen on. At the moment we're not viewing that little house. We can open our preferences with Control K, but we'll always find them in the Edit menu, Preferences, and I'll go to the General option. Because what I'm looking for is this one here. You can see what it says. It's ticked to disable the home screen. So I'm going to untick that so the home screen is shown the next time I launch Photoshop, which I'd better do. Having closed down Photoshop and then relaunched it, it shows me all the last images that I've had open, including the one we had on screen a few moments ago. So I can just double click and that will open up in Photoshop. And now we can see the little house. So in the past, if we wanted to open another image from the home screen, we had to close this image down. But of course, there are times when we want to include two images together. So I may want to go back and pick up something else as well. Well, as you can see, we can now do that pretty quickly and easily. But when the home screen opens, if that's not what we require on this particular occasion, then we've got the Photoshop icon here and we can go directly into Photoshop if that's what we want. Now we do have quite a large change to ContentAware Fill. As you can see here, I've made a quick selection of a distracting bough of a tree up in the top right of my picture here. So I'm going to go to my Edit menu. In the past we may have gone to Fill, and we still have the old ContentAware, which may even do a good job here, but we also have another tool. Back into the Edit menu and just a little further down we have ContentAware Fill. Now you can see we're presented with two windows. We've basically got a before and after. Now we can see that quite a reasonable repair has been made up on the right hand side, but there are times when the repair is taken from areas that we don't require, and we can see that shown to us here. We've got a little bit of the beak of the bird being repeated over on the right hand side. So I want to keep this pretty simple. What we can do is go over to the left hand side. You can see I'm using a brush here which is set to minus. We have a plus as well, but I can say to Photoshop, please don't use that bit to do your repair. And as soon as I do that, you'll see that down at the bottom right down in the bottom corner, you'll see a little circular thing go round as Photoshop does its work. But we can say, I could also say, let's select a little bit more. I've changed my mind. I'm going to add one selection to another. There you can see the change it's made. When I click OK, I actually get the repair on a new blank layer. So there's the original, there's the repair. We can do a little more if we spend more time. A great change, and ContentAware Fill appears to be moving forward at a steady pace. Now there is one other change which I'm not sure how important it's going to be for photographers, but we can see a new icon sitting in the toolbox, so it's difficult to ignore. I think it's probably more aimed at the graphic artist. But if I select it, I can click and draw to produce a placeholder, I suppose you could call it, and I can do the same over here. I can then put images directly in them, so you can see how graphic artists may have a placeholder for a photo that they don't have at the moment, but they can put the type and everything else into their project, and the picture can come a little later. Now we can do that via drag and drop from almost anywhere, I think, and I can do it here. Let's pick up this image from Windows Explorer and just drag it into the first shape. And I'll open up Windows Explorer again from the bottom bar, and I'll drag this one into the other shape. Now we can adjust the size of the frame or the image. So if we were to look at the top image, just select the image, hit Ctrl T. There we can see the image is a little bit big. I'm going to decide here to change the format just a little bit. So remember, we're using the Control T or the free transform, so Shift enables me to squash the image a little bit, and then I could just move on to the other image because I just want to have a quick look at that. That commits the changes in the lily. Now I can hit Control T again, and I can decide if I want to change or improve that. And again, if I just click anywhere, I'll commit that change too. Now if I want to change the image with the frame, I can select the frame, Control T. Now you can see the frame cuts off part of the image. I'll escape that. If I select both and hit Control T, pretty neat. And I think there could be a use for this if you're into audio visual and you do a little bit of work like this. This may come in very handy. That concludes the highlights that I think are worth knowing for photographers. So can I leave you with a quick advert? If you'd like to come to my website at www.beckhamdigital.com.au, I have a direct link to my YouTube channel, which is growing all the time, and there's a good chance you may be viewing this video on YouTube. If not, come here and check it out. Also, come and have a look at my image galleries. I'd like to show you my images because I like to use those as a CV. If I'm making images that maybe give a little inspiration, then my video tutorials may also do the same. I also run a photographic and audio-visual forum, and you can get access to that from the opening page of my website down at the bottom left corner. It's free to join. You just need a username and a password. You can get access to me and meet others who share your passion. Why not come along? You've got nothing to lose.